necrophilia, cannibalism, dismemberment. All characteristics of Edmund Kemper, also known as the co-ed killer. Standing at a whopping 6'9" and weighing around 300 pounds, his large stature made it easy for him to overpower his 10 victims. Among those 10 victims are his grandparents, Maud and Edmund and Mill Kemper, which he killed when he was just 15, and his mother, Clarnell Strandberg, in their home in Santa Cruz.
I still loved my mother, and it's hard for somebody to comprehend that you murder your mother through love. It isn't a rational process. It's a very painful process. It isn't rational, and I've got to still live with that.
His last kill was a friend of his mother's, Sally Hallett. She died on the 21st of April, 1973. After killing Sally, Ed stole her car and drove to Colorado, where he stopped at a payphone to call the Santa Cruz police. When he called to confess the murders, the police thought it was a prank call because of his friendly relationship with many of the local officers. Ed eventually convinced them that he was telling the truth and guided police to his location. He was arrested on April 24th, 1973.
5 o'clock in the morning. Officer Jim Connor is on the night shift when he overhears a colleague taking a call from the gun owner.
Knowing Ed, I got on the phone and we started talking. I could tell that something wasn't right. He was in Pueblo, Colorado. He was in a phone booth, and he hadn't had any sleep for several days. And he said he had done something really bad. He said that he had killed his mother and a friend of hers. He said that they were at his house, and he asked me if I knew Mickey Alufi, and I said yes. And he says, well, my house is hard to find. Mickey knows how to find it very easily because he had been out there and had confiscated a gun.
Officers contacted Detective Alufi at his home.
I'm standing there getting all this information and giving all this information, and I have this tremendous feeling of all of the blood just rushing out of my body. It was just, oh my God, this is unreal. One of the deputies broke the back window, which is on the other side of the sliding glass door. And then we started looking to see if we could locate the bodies in the closet. We pulled back a sheet and we saw some hair and some blood.
Then Big Ed Kemper made a startling confession.
He made comments to Jim Connor on the telephone that he had killed all of the co-eds too.
He helped investigators go through his car and select evidence. He was not trying to hide anything. He always had a good relationship with the officers, even after he was arrested. Once he was in jail, he continued to have interviews with reporters, and he wanted his story to be known. He has stated that the reason he does the interviews is to save others like him from killing. He became a reader for the Books of the Blind and was in charge of scheduling other inmates' appointments with psychiatrists. He was incarcerated in the same prison block as other notorious criminals like Herbert Mullen and Charles Manson, but proved to be a model prisoner. He has expressed great regret for many things in his life. So, how did it all start? Edmund Emil Kemper III was born on December 18, 1948, in Burbank, California. His parents, Clarnell and Edmund Emil Kemper Jr., had a stormy marriage and ended up separating when Ed was 9 years old. He's always been very intelligent with an IQ of 136. From a young age, Ed displayed sociopathic behavior. He tortured and killed animals and acted out bizarre sexual rituals with his sister's dolls. His mother, Clarnell, suffered from borderline personality disorder, which resulted in rage and abuse towards Ed. She often locked him in the basement at night due to the fear that he would molest his sisters. He slept on a small cot with a sleeping bag and a singular light bulb, with the sound of rats running around him. Kemper described this as a scary and depressing time in his life. He had trouble making friends and was struggling with his parents' divorce. He decided to go live with his father and stepmom in Los Angeles, but they soon sent him away to live with his grandparents on their 17-acre farm in North Boat, California. Tension formed between Ed and his grandmother, so he killed her, and then he killed his grandfather to protect him from seeing his dead wife. He called the sheriff himself and confessed to the murders. Ed was admitted to the Atascadero State Hospital at 15 years old. He was well liked by the employees and became a trusted assistant to the psychology staff. He became friends with many serial rapists at the facility and learned how they all got caught doing their heinous crimes. He noted to himself how to successfully carry out the crimes and started fantasizing about what he wanted to do when he was free. Ed figured out how to pass all the psychology tests, so the doctors believed that they cured him. He was released in 1969 at 20 years old. Kemper worked a series of odd jobs before securing work with the state of California's Department of Public Works, which allowed him to move back out of his mother's house and into his own apartment. He wanted to become a police officer, but regulations in California declared that he was too tall to be a cop, so instead he bought a motorcycle. He went to bars that were frequented by officers, and that's where he made many friends. They even called him Big Ed.
Affectionately known as Big Ed, the 25-year-old, 6'9", 280-pound Edmund Kemper was a regular fixture at Cops Bar, the Jury Room.
He would come down to a local watering hole that us police officers would go to after work and hang out and talk with us. He was had a great personality. He was very friendly, very outgoing, and he was a likable guy.
After crashing his motorcycle twice, he bought a car that looked very similar to an unmarked police vehicle. He started giving rides to hitchhikers, no matter the gender. He stated that he wanted to get to know what teenagers were like at the time, because he lost so many of his teen years in the psychiatric facility. He often picked up young college girls, each time studying them and testing to see how they react. He rigged the passenger door so that it couldn't be opened from the inside, and he kept plastic bags, knives, guns, and blankets in the car, never knowing when he might need them. He picked up and dropped off hitchhikers for over a year before killing any of them. This started his spree of murders in May of 1972 when he was 23 years old.
18-year-old Fresno College student Anita Luquesa vanishes. Mary Ann Pesch, an 18-year-old co-ed and talented skier, disappears. 15-year-old ballet dancer Aiko Koo, abducted. Cindy Shaw, 18 years old and babysitting to earn her way through college, goes missing. 23-year-old Rosalind Thorpe vanishes from the Santa Cruz campus. And 21-year-old student Allison Liu disappears forever. As part of a routine firearms inquiry, Detective Michael Alufi would come face to face, but with a short-haired, conservative young man, popular with local police.
The sheriff's office that I worked for at the time received what we call a dealer's record of sale.
One of our records clerks brought back to us a file card and said, you know, this guy just tried to buy a gun and his record was expunged, but I could see through the blackout that he was involved in a murder in Madera County some years ago.
The discussion became, well, who's going to go take the gun away from this guy? Because when you look at his dealer's record of sale, he's 6 feet 8.5 and 285 pounds. So he's a pretty big guy.
The gun owner was definitely not considered a suspect in the co-ed killings. Big Ed lived with his mother on a pleasant, peaceful suburban street. But the address was unclear.
We parked right there, and we looked around, couldn't find much of anything. There were several places that had basically the same address, so we weren't sure which one was his. We were, I'm just guessing at this point, right around this point right here, when a car came around the curve and pulled up right there where that car is. I told Don, I said, let me go ask this guy if he knows where Kemper is. So as I approached the car, there was a gentleman in the car lying across the front seat, with the door open, and he was fiddling underneath the dashboard. And I was just about to this point when I said, "Excuse me, I'd like to speak with you for a second." When he got out of the car, he got out of the car, and he got out of the car, and he got out of the car. And immediately I knew that this was Mr. Kemper, the man I was looking for, because he towered over me, and I'm 6 feet tall. So from here, we explained that, what we needed to do. We needed to take his weapon to make sure that he was authorized to have that legally. We came to the trunk, and he had his keys in his pocket, and he went to put the key in there. And so my partner and I instinctively, whether it be instinct or training, separated, and I came around to this side of the car on the trunk, and my partner was on the other side, and we had our hands on the guns. The only thing that was in the trunk was a bundle, like in a blanket of some sort of towel. He started to reach in for it, and I said, "No, wait a minute, let me get it." I reached in the trunk, got the bundle, and inside of that was the weapon that we were looking for. And I noticed there was nothing in the trunk, no liner in the trunk or anything. I thought that was a little strange, but we took the handgun and we left.
I said, "Are you Ed Kemper?" "Yes." And it goes on. And I needed to find out what they were looking for, the murder weapon, the .22 automatic, or the .44 Magnum. And I don't want to advertise that I've got a whole bunch of guns. So I made a comment to divine between the two. And I said, "Yes, quite a little gun, isn't it?" And he retorted, "A .44 Magnum, I hope so." And I said, "Phew, okay," because that loaded .22 was under the front seat and guaranteed me an arrest right on the spot. And 44 was in the trunk. I forgot that. I took him in the house. We went into my bedroom, and the closet doors open, and I have a high-powered rifle with a scope on it.
You had some other stuff in the house, too, yes?
Yeah. I had the personal effects and identification of the last two co-eds that had been murdered about 2 months before, right next to the guns in the closet, in a box.
Could he have seen it?
No. But when he arrested me for having all those guns and went through the rest of the closet looking to see if there were any pistols or anything else, he couldn't have helped notice a purse, a book bag, and co-ed ID inside of those belonging to their two latest murder victims. I back up and said, "Oh, excuse me. I just remembered something." And instantly he responds to what I'm saying. My hand moves. Back we go outside, and he's still thinking, "Boy, this is a really nice and helpful guy here."
There are many identifiable patterns in most serial killers. A broken home, a cold and distant mother, and an absent father. Many male serial killers kill and torture cats in their youth, and this is thought to be because cats are a female symbol. Kemper has displayed warning signs that the FBI has identified as common among serial killers. This was the end of Ed's killing spree. In court, he stated he wanted the death sentence, but instead was charged with life in prison. Could he have been stopped? Was there any way to prevent these people from dying? Was justice served?